This is a rehearsal for that day of judgment. How will we account for our acts? Have I injured anyone? Have I been grateful enough for the simple gifts of life, water, food, friends, family, the air I breathe?
I am insignificant, and God is so great, yet I have a one-to-one conversation and a promise to accept that, my prayers.
We wait for the sun to set. It is a special time. At this point, the conscience of a pilgrim who has performed the Hajj properly is wiped clean. But the obligations of the Hajj give us no time to dwell on that. The flood tide of 2 million people begins to ebb back in the direction of Mina. Each of us is required to stop along the way, to step off the road here at Muzdalifa. I gather 49 pebbles, each about the size of a pea. So what I do is I tie them into my ihram so I don't lose them. I will need these pebbles at our next destination. They are my weapons against the devil. Here I practice fighting temptation, throwing pebbles at a pillar representing Satan. It is an athletic release from the complex obligations of the Hajj. We will do this 3 times. The pillar marks the place where Satan tempted the prophet Abraham, who drove him off with stones. After a ritual sacrifice, pilgrims conclude the Hajj by circling the Kaaba 7 times and running 7 times between the hills again. It is best to leave Mecca soon after throwing our last stones. The place should remain unique, not grow familiar. We visit the Kaaba one last time. For most of us, this will be our last glimpse of the shrine. There is an old proverb: before you visit Mecca, it beckons to you. When you leave it behind, it calls to you forever. This is Michael Wolff for Nightline in Mecca.
When we come back, a conversation I had with Michael Wolff during his pilgrimage from Islam's holiest shrine, the Great Mosque in Mecca. We've received an enormous amount of help from Saudi television. Indeed, it's no exaggeration to say that we would not be able to show you the picture we are showing you now without the help of Saudi television. Michael Wolff, who has been our host, our guide, our narrator throughout this program, joins us now from the Great Mosque at Mecca. And Michael, just to set the scene, tell us where we are and what we're looking at.
Well, we're looking at the Great Mosque of Mecca. The oldest building in Islam, really, is directly behind me. That's the large black cube called the Kaaba. High up in the air, we have minarets. A little lower, the buildings of Mecca. And then the 3 floors of this enormous mosque, which tonight is a little less full than it has been in the last week.
Just talk for a moment about about your own feelings. In a sense, this one has to be a little bit mixed because on the one hand, you've been working and helping us to understand what's going on. On the other hand, it's clearly a very personal and intimate and spiritual experience for those who go through it. Give us a sense of that, would you?
Well, any pilgrim who comes here to perform the Hajj, myself included, is fulfilling, first of all, a religious obligation the first time they come. Secondly, and for me, now that I'm here for the second time, this is also a chance for everyone who comes to Mecca, who can manage to make the journey, a chance to get back to basics. It's a chance to remember that we have things to be grateful for, beginning with the air and the water and the food that we consume and the natural world that supports us. And it's quite extraordinary to see 2 million people in this frame of mind all at once. It's very difficult not to meet people in Mecca, and it's a great pleasure to do so. As I said earlier in the program, a walk around the block here really is a walk around the world.
Are there any acquaintances that you've made over these last few days that stand out in particular?
I've met some wonderful figures from South Africa, individuals who have put the Hajj in perspective for me in a couple of dozen words over a cup of tea. very interesting encounter. So this sort of moving around, which I enjoy greatly, and simply slipping into small stores and stopping on a street corner and wishing someone a successful Hajj inevitably develops into a conversation of some sort. And we've tried to show that somewhat in the show. These are for the most part, you know, these are not set up conversations we're dealing with here. They're opportunities that we have had the camera about, but it's not hard to meet people and even to photograph them.
You think you'll ever be back?
Well, as we say here, inshallah, God willing, I hope so. I enjoy this town greatly.
Michael, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for giving us an insight into something that without your help, most of us would never have seen. It's been extraordinary.
Thank you very much.
I'll be back with a final thought in a moment. It does seem sometimes that major religions expend a lot of energy working at cross purposes to some of their own goals. Each of the great monotheistic religions, after all, emphasizes its own uniqueness, its own particular access to the Creator, at the same time that it acknowledges God's limitless love, forgiveness, and understanding for all people. It is hard to envision such a God condemning hundreds of millions of people simply because they lack the foresight to be born into the religion that we happen to believe in, or because in later years they remained faithful to the religion of their birth. It should certainly be difficult to look at the great throngs of Muslims that we've seen tonight, men and women from all over the world, indistinguishable from one another by education or class, income or station, united in their common belief, and to feel anything other than respect, affection, and a sense that we are all much more alike than our various affiliations sometimes lead us to believe. That's our report for tonight. I'm Ted Koppel in Washington. For all of us here at ABC News, good night.